Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules here, and welcome back to the Pie Guy Rules 5th year anniversary extravaganza. Today we're going to be looking at and then commentating upon all of my old Nick Rants. I'm going to try not to say the same things that I said in my Cartoon Network rants, although forgive me if I'm going to be repetitively saying, oh, these videos were bad, ow my ears, why did I ever make these things? So yeah, let's just jump right into it. Oh boy. Well, again, my voice is not yet reached commentator levels. You can hear the disc spinning on my video camera because I used to have a CD-based video camera. That's what that noise is, that like loading noise. What else? Oh, I called Jimmy Neutron's hairdo a whippy dip hairdo. I don't know where that came from. I try to rate things on like the Nick scale, and I give like Jimmy Neutron like a 9, and I give Barnyard a 1 and Tack a 2. That's just kind of silly. I've abandoned that long ago. I don't believe in like number rating scales. I mean, it's not that I don't believe in them. I don't do them because that's all relative. So let's see. One of the things. Okay, I guess I could talk about this. One of the things that has always bugged me and has always gotten me in these old videos is that I called them the worst and most neglected shows on Nickelodeon. Now, there's two parts to that, and I mean, a lot of this is my fault for having like phrasing things awfully. The part of that is I'm talking about bad shows, or in my opinion, bad shows like Tack and the Power of Juju and Barnyard, but I'll get to Barnyard in a minute, and good shows that Nickelodeon has abused, like Jimmy Neutron, and a lot of for how rough this video is, a lot of the points I make still kind of stand. With Jimmy Neutron, they aired a lot of the episodes out of order, and especially they aired the finale, the big finale with all the villains before the last season, where some of the villains are even introduced. Like in the big finale, you know, there's a few villains that appear in the last season. There's a few villains who in the finale decide to take a turncoat and befriend Jimmy and help him. Yet when we see him later in the season, they're not helping. They're still jerks to him. You know, they're villains. It just, as a kid, if you didn't know that it was airing out of order, you'd wonder what on earth was going on. And there's really no reason for it, Nickelodeon, aside from, I don't know if they still have this practice today, but, I mean, that wasn't the last show that it had problems with it. Danny Phantom and a few others. But yeah, that point still stands. And then my point about Tack and Barnyard, of the fact that Nickelodeon couldn't just leave a franchise alone. But even back then, even 5 years ago, Nickelodeon had no ideas. Nickelodeon was still saying, well, you know, we've been making this video game series for a while. Why not make that a cheap TV show that didn't last very long? You know, and let's reuse models from Jimmy Neutron, and we already have designs and stuff. It'll be easy. It'll write itself, you know, and then let's take a movie that we made and make it into a series. And, you know, we've already got the models and everything. And I mean, that point still stands. Nickelodeon still is doing that, you know, even now. Now, my opinion on Barnyard, back at the Barnyard, the actual series, has changed. A lot of people for the longest time thought that I hated this show, and I did. But looking back on it, it's not as bad as I said it was. I still don't think it's particularly a good cartoon, but it's not like the epitome of awful. Like, it's a lot better than Tack. Tack and the Power of Juju really had not much substance. Back at the Barnyard could be funny. I will give it that. But I also still stand by the fact that the lady that basically knows that the animals are actually humans, she's written off as insane. And that's not really that funny. I mean, I know she's kind of a weird, unstable person in general, but the fact is, she's right. There are animals and weird shenanigans going on right under their noses. So to see her be dismissed as insane for actually being right, it's just a little bit off-putting, in my opinion. But yeah, okay, that was a lot of talking, and that's my first Nick rant. On to the second one. Okay, I start off this video by being like, I'm gonna give you guys a second just to think about what I'm about to say. And then I actually like wait a few beats, and then I'm like, if you thought I was gonna say this is good, then you must be like 3 years old. Like, you can tell I was trying to be funny, but I didn't have the timing and I didn't have the chops for it yet. However, much like with the first rant here, I can kind of see why you guys actually like this, because although my production values are still really awful at that point, my opinions were kind of on the money in some areas. I sound really sexist in this video because I keep saying, like, well, I keep saying H2O is a girly show. I keep saying Hannah Montana is a girly show. I keep saying, Zoe 101 is a girly show. Okay, Hannah Montana is kind of a girly show. It's all about fashion and well, I mean, it's not all about fashion, but, well, then again, so is That's So Raven, and I really like That So. My point being, most shows are gender neutral, and not being a girl is no reason to not like Zoe 101. Zoe 101 was actually pretty decent. Actually surprisingly good. I just never watched it. So I wasn't trying to come off as that sexist. I was kind of covering my back for shows that I just wasn't interested in and didn't know anything about. So I didn't want to say anything. But my points about the Naked Brothers band in the video mostly were spot on. I mean, they overblew the show was like a soap opera. They had this 12-year-old kid. I think the older one was like 12 or 14. Like, he was no older than 15, at least like in the beginning of the show. And they were having these big plots where he was in love and long distance relationships and telling the girl that you love her, and it's like, to me, watching this, it means nothing. You could argue that at 16, 17, 18, even my age now, you don't know much about love. And maybe I don't. Maybe that's true. But, I mean, come on. As someone not even in high school, that definitely do not know, and I'm not saying you can't experience love or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, I'm not on the edge of my seat at this soap opera that is just not. And I don't know why the show was shot like that. It still baffles me why they went with that angle. I mean, you had kids that were rock stars. Isn't that, like, enough? Why did it have to be this big romance thing? And the band name. The band name, I heard the stories of, like, how it was the name that they said as like little kids as they came up with that name, like in an innocent way. And yeah, sure, it's an innocent way, but Naked Brothers Band, like, it sounds like something either really artsy or something like really wrong. And I don't know. I really dislike that series. And again, going in the theme with Nickelodeon's unoriginality, there have been other shows on Nick about a band, and hey, Big Time Rush is a thing. So yeah, it's definitely a lasting trend and more proof that Nick has run out of ideas. But yeah, so that's my review on the Naked Brothers Band, guys. And that's the other thing. If I were to do this video today, I would make a review of the Naked Brothers Band. I wouldn't call it Nick Rant Part 2. But I mean, I guess that's why. I mean, because this video doesn't even have anything else aside from talking about that. I kind of mentioned Hannah Montana and stuff, but I don't really get into it there. Okay, so this is the big dog right here. This is me talking about how Nickelodeon, mistreated the Avatar: The Last Airbender fan base, and man, I was actually kind of spot on. Yeah, once again, like Invader Zim, Nickelodeon had a show here that was not really hitting as well with its intended demographic as it was with, well, teenagers and adults. That's not to say kids didn't love Avatar. Kids did. It's just, it hit a lot more of the other fan base that Nickelodeon doesn't really care about than it did with kids. And even in this video, I'm talking about how SpongeBob is aired to death. And I'm like, no offense against SpongeBob, which... now there's a fence against SpongeBob, but yeah, even back then I nailed it, and I talked about how Nickelodeon only really, I mean, a lot of their shows at the time, they only gave one or two seasons. Most of the shows they did give more than one season. They gave like 2 seasons, so I was a little bit inaccurate there, but I had a good point. Nickelodeon, this was the point where Nickelodeon was running out of its old shows. It was canceling everything that wasn't SpongeBob, and the Fairly OddParents was like, it was like there, but it was also not there. Like it was, I think, officially canceled at that point, but it hadn't been brought back yet. As Jimmy Neutron was gone, like there was a lot of, they were trying things like El Tigre. El Tigre was a good show, man. That was a really good show, but they didn't give it that many seasons. I don't know. I don't know what Nickelodeon was thinking. Maybe it just wasn't getting the ratings, but yeah, the sponge was soaking everything up, even at even at that point. And I make some good points, but it's very rough, and there are some inaccuracies in the video. And I also posted an annotation a horribly spelled annotation, two horribly spelled annotations. And I'll get to that in a second, but you guys should know that I am an awful speller. And I'm bad at grammar too. Used to be, at least. I used to be bad at grammar, but now I'm more of a stickler for it. And I'm more of a stickler for spelling, but that's mostly thanks to my Mac and my iPhone having spell check. Like, I try to make sure all my words are spelled correctly, but at the same time, I'm not good at it. Like, I'm just not. But I take the time to try and make sure everything's spell checked. And yeah, so the two annotations, the one says something that bugged me was that the Avatar episodes, the later parts of season 3, or was it? Yeah, the later parts of season 3 were aired in Canada and sold on DVD in America. And yet Nickelodeon was pumping them up as a world premiere of the last episodes. Like, no, that is garbage, because they were premiered in Canada. I'm like, apparently Canada isn't part of the world anymore, according to Nickelodeon. That is lying, and I know it's advertising, but even still, you withhold the episodes from us, make us go watch it online, which is what we all did anyway. People from Canada uploaded it, and we watched it there. Nickelodeon lost revenue for it, and they tried to get us to buy the DVDs instead of, watching the episodes first. So really, Nickelodeon, like, what were you thinking with that? Just mistreating Avatar a lot, and the fact that it disappeared. And I could talk a lot more about this, but hey, that's the rant. So next video. Okay, so now this is pretty much the prototype of what the state of the network addresses have become. It's basically me kind of looking at the Wikipedia page for the shows that are airing, that ended, that are coming up. It's kind of like a look at the present, the past, and the future of the network, and it's cool. I like it, and Wikipedia's become pretty good, as of late for resources. It's still not the best, but it's fairly reliable. But yeah, I shot this with like an actual physical video camera. Today I would use my software that I used to record my screen. Screenium is what I use, by the way. I would do that, and yeah, it'd look a little bit nicer, but the camera setup wasn't that bad. It was a little bit crooked, and you can tell that I like open up the lens cap in the beginning, and it's a little bit weird and out of focus and stuff. But overall, this not that bad a video, not that bad an idea. And I'm just kind of I talk about how SpongeBob hasn't surpassed Rugrats in amount of episodes. That's happened. I talk about how SpongeBob's going downhill and it's gonna run itself into the ground. That has also happened. Man, call me Nostradamus here. I talk about Fanboy and Chum Chum and how it sounds like a decent idea, but also that, a lot of things sound like a good idea. Communism, in theory, sounds like a good idea, but in practice, it's always going to be some corrupted leader that ruins it. But yeah, and then I talk about, let's see, the penguins of Madagascar. I still, to this day, I have like the same opinion as I did before. Something about that show is kind of dull and off-putting to me. I don't think it's necessarily an awful show. I just think it's kind of a forgettable show. Again, it's based off of an existing movie property. Again, Nick has no ideas. If that's not drilled into your head by now, I don't know what is. I haven't done my job very well, apparently. But yeah, something about that show just really doesn't feel right to me. But I can't explain it particularly well. But yeah, also I make an error at the beginning where I say the first 4 shows only had 52 episodes. The list was actually by end date. So those are the first 4 shows that ended had 52 episodes, because Rugrats obviously was one of the first 3, but, ended a lot later than the rest of them. But yeah, and the video also cuts off at an awkward place, because it was originally parts 4 and 5 were recorded as one, and then I decided maybe it would be better to split it up. Also, this is my first my first Nick rant in like 2 years, and you can tell, the quality's gotten pretty good, and this was also partially because there was no editing. It was just kind of me talking the entire time, and then I also mentioned having my wisdom teeth out, which is a thing that happened. Trust me, kids, if you have to get your wisdom teeth taken out, try to take out as many as possible, even if they're not bothering you, because you don't want to have more than one of these surgeries. It doesn't hurt during the surgery, but afterwards, you're going to be, like, out of it, and it's going to hurt you in, like, the weeks to come. I did it over Christmas break, so I'd have time off to just relax and watch House episodes that I got on DVD over Christmas and eat Jell-O, which is what I was allowed to eat. And I'm just rambling now, so okay, on to the next video. Now, talk about Nickelodeon definitely not having original ideas. I mean, aside from this video being a little bit redundant, I kind of overstated a bit much, but yeah, I'm right on the money here, and unfortunately, this is the way Nickelodeon is. It's all movie spin-offs and TV show spin-offs and spin-offs of spin-offs, and even the live-action shows can't escape being spin-offs of spin-offs. We got 3 spin-offs of iCarly, kind of, if you count Wendell and Vinny. It's the same actor playing a very similar role. Anyway, yeah, I mean, this is, it's such a problem, and I'll elaborate on it here because I don't mention it in the video. I say that making like a Kung Fu Panda series takes away from the movie. I said that, but it really does if you think about it, because something like the Kung Fu Panda movie especially, that was artsy, that was cool, it had good animation, it had, stellar voice actors that were big-time stars like Jack Black. You had a poignant message in the movie. You had a climax, you had a main villain, it's terrifying. You had all of that. And then when you take that and you put it into a series, well, you make the entire thing less epic. You don't get the star voice actors. You don't get as good animation. It does take away from it. And I'm not saying that every series based upon every movie, takes away from the movie, but it does take away a little bit from the original impact of the movie when you have a TV show that airs alongside it. It's like, did we really need to see the side adventures of Poe, And I mean, it's even worse for Monsters vs. Aliens, because nobody asked for a series about that. It's a movie that's a few years old. They're going to make a sequel, I think, but even still, it was a good movie, but nobody wants it. And I knew they would promote Bob, the stupid blob thing. I knew they would. The Nickelodeon marketing team's like, kids really respond to the hyperactive alien goo or monster goo. Let's just put him. And I from what I hear, he's not like the main focus of the series. Yet you wouldn't know that by looking at the advertisements. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it right now. In a few years, Nickelodeon will have a Despicable Me series, and they will promote the heck out of the Minions. I am calling that right now, because at this point, it's not even that far-fetched. And the most ridiculous thing is that Nickelodeon didn't even get the DreamWorks spinoff that probably makes the most sense, is the How to Train Your Dragon one, the Dragon's Rider to Berk. That Cartoon Network got that one. So Nickelodeon, I mean, couldn't even get... I guess maybe they were like, maybe like 5 of these is just one too many. Let's pass on that. But the one about the penguins, yeah, we need that. The one about the Monsters versus Aliens, whose main character was like an actual woman with, realistic, not like a kid, and the one about the panda, yep, that's ours. That's our department right here. As it turned out, Tough Puppy ended up being a pretty good show. I never got a chance to talk about that show when it was still relevant. I kept putting it off. My opinion, good show, but nothing groundbreaking, to be completely honest. It's just it was a solid. It was funny, but it wasn't anything we hadn't seen before, really. So the first thing I have to say is that this was originally posted to my website as an exclusive rant, and then I decided, well, you know what, I want everyone to see this, so I made it public, I think a few months later, or however much longer later. I don't know what my problem was in this video. I seem to have a real bug up my butt. I guess it was just Nickelodeon was just really getting to me, in that they just seem to be doing everything wrong. Even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Nickelodeon just kind of, it seemed to give up. It seemed to just not be trying anymore. It's not showcasing new people with new creative ideas for cartoons anymore. All of its live action shows are spin-offs of one another too, and made by Dan Schneider. Like, it's not even like it's more even than that Nick is just unoriginal. It's Nickelodeon doesn't even want to like accept outside help. Like, they're not trying to bring in new talent like they originally did. That's what the network was founded on. Klasky Cupid made like 4 or 5 cartoons for them, but the rest of them were kind of, pulled in from random areas. The people who made Rocko's Modern Life were not the same people who made Ren and Stimpy. And I think Nick's problem maybe was that they relied too much on the same people over and over again, which is good. It's good to see more from people who've done successful things, but I mean, they kept doing that, and then they forgot to bring in new people at some point, and so now they're just kind of like, well, anyone we bring in now has no credibility, and yet we have to rely on them to carry our network if we decide to cut the cord on the Sponge or, their iCarly or whatever live action show is that popular at the moment. But yeah, so that's on that. And then on Nickelodeon Magazine, I'm a bit wrong here. I mean, I think a lot of it was that I was really sad. I was genuinely, a little bit heartbroken over Nick Mag stopping, because I have a lot of fond memories of that. And I didn't end up doing a tribute video. Well, not in the way I thought I would. I ended up showcasing a few issues, I think, on a separate, as part of separate videos. But yeah, Nick Mag meant a lot to me. And where I'm wrong is the fact that Nickelodeon ended the magazine because the magazine industry is dying. Nintendo Power just recently died. A lot of magazines are kind of dead or moved to a digital format, which Nick Mag, I could maybe see them doing that, but even still, it wouldn't be the same. And times have changed, and the magazine in more recent, in its later years, was kind of dying. It wasn't the same thing. It does run a lot parallel to Nintendo Power, where in the last few years of its run, it wasn't the same. It lacked the charm. It was handed over the keys to someone else, and that person just tried their best, but couldn't capture the original feel. So I understand why the magazine went out. I don't treat it anymore as, this was the worst decision Nickelodeon could have made. What do they even have? But I mean, a lot of the rest of the frustration in this rant is kind of warranted in the fact that Nickelodeon it keeps disappointing. It really does. The Kids' Choice Awards rant. My first ever video on the Kids' Choice Awards. I've talked way too much about the Kids' Choice Awards recently, so yeah, all I can say is I don't have anything else to say on the Kids' Choice Awards right now. But I will say it is nice to see that after the awful how awful a mood I was in the last rant, that I'm a little bit more upbeat in this one, and that there is still one Nickelodeon tradition that is at least still partially sacred to them. There are some minor flaws to it, and there's some Kesha performances in there, but overall, the thing has retained its integrity and sticks to be at least somewhat faithful to what it originally was, and a really nice ongoing tradition. Now, if they cancel this, if they ever stop doing this, I don't know, man. Nickelodeon, I don't know. I would call it a sellout, but it kind of already has been. So I don't know what I would do at that point. I would just be like, oh, well, there goes that last tiny little shred of respect I had for you, Nickelodeon. This might actually be my best rant ever. First of all, I should talk about the visuals. I probably had just gotten my Adobe Premiere Elements, the editing software I still use today, although hopefully I'll be replacing that soon because it started to get really glitchy on me. But as you can see, there were some audio glitches. I hadn't quite yet gotten down how to edit audio. You'll still see audio glitches today, but I like to think I've done a pretty good job of kind of mashing together things and removing my in official videos, not videos like this where I'm saying because it's commentary and loosey-goosey, and I don't care if it's polished and that. So nah. But yeah, I kind of started to edit. There were some hiccups, but overall, it's pretty good. And this video hits on just a lot of things that bug me about Nickelodeon's live-action comedies. Like iCarly's ridiculous plots, strange focus on things like Sasquatches and the stupid love triangle. Nobody cares. You want to see a show about kids doing a webcast. You can do occasionally episodes about things completely unrelated, but I just found some of the plots to just be too stupid, too ridiculous, too silly. Even for something like iCarly. And then I talk about Big Time Rush, and I honestly, you could do a lot worse than Big Time Rush. You really could. The show is stylized in a cool way, and it's much better than the Naked Brothers Band. I pretty much agree with what I said in the video. I mean, I don't particularly like Big Time Rush as a band, but as a show, it's not awful. And then I bring up the point about how all of these Nick shows, all of the more recent Nick coms, are about kids famous for webcasting, for going to, a school about performing arts, for getting famous in the fashion industry. Like, so many of them, outside of Bucket and Skinner, but we'll get to that in a minute, so many of them are. And it's like, why? I get it. It's cool to have some shows about kids doing things that ordinary kids, could only dream of. That's totally cool. But the fact is, all of the shows are that way, or most of the shows are like that. And it's like, what about the past? What about Keenan and Kel, Drake and Josh? What about Clarissa Explains It All? Yeah, they were weird kids and they got into quirky adventures, but they're doing, like, they're relatable. They're actual people that we could understand and relate with. But I'm repeating the rant when I shouldn't be. That's how you know it's a sign of a good rant, because I still agree with pretty much all of my opinions in the rant. Yeah, I mean, like, it's a problem. It's a problem that Nickelodeon has. It's a marketing thing. Nickelodeon does want to sell their CDs, and it goes even beyond that. It's just that, like, Nick wants the kids to kind of to like the actresses and actors behind the scenes. Nick wants to, I don't know, I guess it looks good on their image, their really bad image right now. Even with kids, it has a pretty bad image. But yeah, and then I talk about Bucket and Skinner, and Bucket and Skinner that show was pretty bad. And it still airs on Teen Nick. It does, and which is kind of ironic considering the last rant in this playlist. But yeah, the show, it's just trying to be like, whoa, we're super epic and everything's tubular and 80s and, like, we're having fun adventures, we're Bill and Ted. But it's just kind of like, you have to get a certain charming factor down when you're dealing with stupid characters or characters that are really annoying. And if you miss the charming factor, then your characters are just, well, really annoying and not funny. And that was the main problem with that show. The other problem was that it thought it was a lot funnier than it actually was. But yeah, I think that this video was pretty good. It had some interesting visuals. I would have gone a lot less on the filters. Usually when I do graphics, I'll do I'll do either a zoom in or I'll do, one color change, start to finish, and it'll be gradual. This one went a little bit overboard, but it was interesting to look at. It had decent editing, not the best, but a lot better. I had my good commentary voice at this point. And a lot of the stuff, I point out a lot of problems with a lot of Nick shows, and I cover a lot of ground in the video. And so that's why it's one of my better rants, like my better general rants. Probably my favorite of all the ones labeled like General Cartoon Network or General Nickelodeon rants. And the last one in the playlist is kind of an honorary Nick rant. It's a teen Nick rant, but since it kind of fit like it was a Nickelodeon rant, and Teen Nick's one of the partner networks of Nickelodeon, I decided to include it in the playlist because it just kind of made sense that way. So this rant is kind of interesting in that it's about a kid's network, or I guess a teenage network. It's about, like, kind of the stuff that I usually talk about, but it's also a little bit like it transcends that and starts to talk about ad agencies and how things are marketed towards teenagers and teenage women, young women especially, and self-esteem issues and all of that. And the 90s are all that, and body issues are all that too. No, but yeah, I mean, I really like this rant. It's like I said, it's not, like I said in the video, it's not very polished. And by the way, that editing glitch, that audio glitch, that's not me. I didn't do that intentionally. That was, like I said, my editing software, my Adobe Premiere Elements. That was the first thing that broke on me, was the record narration. I can't do it on there anymore, or else I get those glitches. So that's why I have to record to iMovie, then export iMovie, and then chop off the video in my Adobe Premiere Elements when I go to edit it. But yeah, that's that. But yeah, I think actually, from what I've recently seen of the 90s or all that, I think they've toned this down a bit, the feminine beauty products. I think they have, because when I saw it, it seemed like normal commercials. Nothing really stuck out. I didn't see the stupid text 588 to get the stupid ringtone. I didn't get the 6 ads for pregnancy tests. I didn't get the Selena Gomez hair care products or whatever. It seemed more like normal commercials, but then again, I wasn't paying that much attention to them, so I don't know. The problem could still be there, but I mean, that's, that I kind of touch upon a topic that I'm not particularly well versed enough in about, body issues and all of that. But it is definitely, it's depressing to see things like acne cream commercials and commercials for, pregnancy. It makes you think about things that you really don't want to think about, especially when you're watching like cartoons, 90s cartoons of all things. It's like, hey, man, remember the 90s back when you were a kid and watching Rocko's Modern Life? Yeah, well, now you're a pregnant teenager with acne problems and bad hairstyle. Like, this is you now. It's like, wow, that's just extra depressing. I should also mention that I never actually did that rant about the live action adventure shows on Nickelodeon. I've never really even touched that. It's just, I don't know. I've completely ignored things like Super Ninjas and Power Rangers, and yeah, I guess it's not really my shtick. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this look back at my Nickelodeon rants. I know this has gone on a bit longer than I expected it to, but I hope you guys liked this little bit of insight. It feels good to kind of get this stuff off my chest, because these videos are rough, less so than the Cartoon Network rants, and these ones make better points than my Cartoon Network ones do. I think these hold up a bit better, but it's good to get this stuff off my chest and kind of be honest, as opposed to the other option, taking the videos down and, being like, well, they never happened, whistle and walk away, which is kind of what I'm tempted to do. But I know people like these old videos, and they still serve a purpose, so I'm not going to take them down. I hope you watch them and celebrate them in all of their awkwardness and poor production skills that they are. So, with that, I'm Pie Guy Rules. Pie Guy Rules out. Hey guys, don't forget to subscribe if you like me, like this video if you, like this video, and comment if you have an opinion on anything that I just said. Oh, and I also have a Twitter. Follow me at Pie Guy Rules. I usually respond to any comments or questions that I get. Pie Guy Rules, out.